Joining us now is Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden. I'm not sure whether you were able to hear Elaine's interview. She is waiting to hear whether she'll get pension credit. She's keeping her thermostat at 13 degrees, so worried about the cold. We also had an email in from Diane. I went to see my mum yesterday. She just misses winter fuel allowance, sitting there with her coat on and had turned the heating right down. Pat, you and I were both advisors in the Labour government 25 years ago, which introduced and raised the winter fuel allowance precisely so it would go to pensioners like Elaine and Diane's mum, so they wouldn't be turning down the heating. Do you understand why Elaine says it's cruel that you're picking on pensioners, that she is cold because of that decision?
With regard to the lady who's applied for pension credit, we've taken on several hundred more people to look at these applications. I hope she gets an answer to that application soon. Yes, Ed, you and I were there when this benefit was introduced many years ago. One of the things that's changed since then, which I hope benefits all pensioners, is that the level of the basic state pension is higher now than it was back in the days when this was introduced. So I hope that all pensioners benefit from that. And in terms of this year and next year, that will mean the basic state pension going up by, I think, over £1,000 for people over the 2 years. That should help with bills, heating bills and other bills. And we've made a commitment to keep that basic state pension rising in line with the triple lock principles, which should mean it goes up quite considerably over the course of this Parliament.
But the problem is, Pat, Diane says her mum is sitting with her coat, turning down the heating. I mean, that's wrong. She just fails to qualify for the winter allowance.
Well, for someone like that, there might be support available locally through the Household Support Fund, which we also extended in the budget a couple of months ago. There are other pots of money available locally to try to help people in particular circumstances. So I don't know if an individual would be able to access that help, but that's something else that we made available at the budget back in October.
Forgive me, Pat McFadden, but I think a lot of people watching will think it is remarkable that you can tell our viewer, Elaine, who we've just spoken to, that she's got perfectly enough money to pay her heating bills, absolutely flying in the face of the evidence that she has just given us. Let's have a listen to what Elaine said.
If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. I don't use my oven, you know, unless it's really... I think I had 5 cooked meals in that oven last year. I'd rather have the heating on because of my lung disease. But there's a high amount of people like myself that are having to cope on a very small budget. You know, I'm not the only one, and it's cruel. I've heard nothing, absolutely nothing from that date. So I don't know whether I'm entitled to it or not.
Elaine, if the increase in the pension was going to offset the loss of the winter fuel allowance, she said no. You're saying yes, it does. You're arguing with a 75-year-old pensioner with lung disease who spent 20 years of her life caring for her husband and tells you she's only cooking 5 hot meals a year because she can't afford to put the oven on as well as have the heating on. How can you do that with a straight face as a government minister, a Labour government minister, who's taken away money from some of the poorest in our society?
Well, we targeted the winter fuel payment on the poorest pensioners. That's why it's still available to those who paid for pension credit. I'm not commenting on anybody's individual financial circumstances. I know I can't do that. With regard to someone like, I think Elaine might have a claim in from what she said there. I didn't see the whole interview. If she has, I hope that's assessed. We've had people in my own constituency office who didn't know they were entitled to pension credit, who we've been helping with the applications, and some of those have been able to get it and not only keep their winter fuel payment, but actually get access to other benefits that they didn't know they were entitled to in the past.
The government department doesn't know if she's entitled to it or not. She applied, received a letter saying she'd get it. was then told by the helpline she wouldn't. Then she appeared on Good Morning Britain. She received a letter from the DWP saying she might be eligible, and the online calculator says she should be entitled to winter fuel allowance. She applied for both more than a month ago and has heard nothing since. You took this away from millions of pensioners, and now you've left people like Elaine not knowing what she's entitled to and certainly not getting the money in time for the cold snap.
Well, I hope she gets her answer soon. As I said, we've taken on extra people to process these applications. We want everybody who might be entitled to apply because they should get what they're entitled to. So I hope she gets an answer very soon. And if she is entitled to it, that would both get her the winter fuel payment, but also possibly access to other benefits that she might not have had access to in the past.
Why did you take the winter fuel allowance away from pensioners, Pat McFadden? Why did you do that as a Labour government that should have as its principle that they look after those who can't pay? Put aside the very poorest, which, as you've said, are still going to be covered. But we're talking about a cut-off point of around £12,000 and people telling you directly they cannot afford to keep warm despite their illness and despite the fact they're no longer cooking food for themselves. Why did you take the money away from them?
Well, the decision on the winter fuel payment was made in the summer because of the situation that we faced when we came into office.
You could have taken money away from all sorts of other people, including the richest. You didn't. Why did you take it away from pensioners?
Well, it was also done in the light of what's happened to the pension since the winter fuel payment was announced 20-odd years ago. As I said, the level of the basic state pension has gone up since then.
Right, so you thought they had enough coming in from the increase in the pension that they wouldn't notice you taking away the winter fuel allowance financially?
No, I don't think we thought people wouldn't notice, but we made a commitment to keep increasing the level of the basic state pension over the course of the Parliament. That's what we've done for this year. That's what we'll do in future years. That will mean that level of the basic state pension goes up. It's an important commitment to pensioners. And alongside that, keep the winter fuel payment for those with access to pension credit and give more help to local authorities through the household support fund. So they were getting enough money on top of that
from the increase in their pension that it would offset the winter fuel allowance payment?
Well, it's an important commitment to make sure that the basic state pension keeps going up.
Yeah.
That's something that we've done for this Parliament, and it will mean that the value does go up and it will help pensioners right across the board as we do that.
So you gave with one hand and took away with the other.
The problem is, what pensioners have heard, what our viewers have heard, is you made a commitment not to raise taxes on working people, and you decided that was the priority, and that pensioners weren't the priority, and therefore poor pensioners have lost out. That's what they hear.
Well, we have got a commitment to pensioners, and it's exercised through that commitment on the triple lock to increase the value of the basic state pension. But it's also true that we did make commitments to working people, and we kept to them in the budget because we thought they'd been hit hard over a number of years. And we wanted to make a series of decisions that bolstered the public services, got investment going, stabilised the public finances, and put ourselves in a better position as the country goes forward. That's what we did in the budget. We've got other announcements, like the big announcement we're making today on AI and how to make the economy more productive in the future, to try to get the growth going, to generate the wealth that we need for pensioners and for everybody else.
A final question on this then, Pat. You're making an announcement about AI and savings. On the front of the Telegraph, you have the Treasury saying the Cabinet told cuts must be ruthless. Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves said no return to austerity. What does austerity mean to you? And can you guarantee now there's not going to be a return to austerity despite these cuts we're expecting?
Well, the letter in the Telegraph talks about ruthless prioritisation, Ed, and you'll remember a great Labour hero, Nye Bevan, who talked about the importance of prioritisation. And that's exactly what Darren Jones, my colleague, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, is saying to Cabinet colleagues, and he's right about prioritisation. And we published our priorities in a plan for change just before Christmas, which is all about house building, economic growth, getting the waiting list down, making sure that children have the best start in life. These are the priorities in the spending review. That's what the Treasury is indicating to Cabinet colleagues. This is number 10 and number 11 working together for the same goals.
So no
it's a
return
good
to
idea,
austerity.
and we should keep going with it.
So
And
no
as
return to austerity, Pat?
the Chancellor's made that very clear.
OK.